Hey Zwifters, I'm Simon Schofield, and this is the return of the Zwiftcast. I know, been a while, eh? Coming up on this episode, it's a giant catch-up. What did I miss these last couple of years? Zwift Ride HQ launch a ferociously competitively priced smart bike. Game changer? We assess the tech and business cases. The Grade. Zwift attempts to make the dreaded but necessary FTP test a bit more palatable. Coach Kristan Armstrong has top tips. And the future of the Zwiftcast. Why are we back and what have we got planned? Plus, a whole lot more. Stay tuned. Well, on April the 28th, 2022, this happened. Hey Zwifters, I'm Simon Schofield, and for the final time, this is the Zwiftcast. Okay, the Zwiftcast DEFCON SAPI warning system is turned up to 11 for this episode. We will naturally reflect on the fact that in its current guise at least, this is the last Zwiftcast. It has been a total blast. I literally have enjoyed every episode. I will miss it. I'll miss the listeners. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And thank you very, very, very much for you two for being such terrific colleagues and contributors and friends. Thank you, and bye-bye. Well, now, that was one monumental cafe stop, 25 months long, in fact, but I'm still here, Zwift is still here, and guess what? My fabulous, famous, feisty co-hosts are still here. G'day, Shane, mate. It's been a minute.
New phone. Who dis? I don't recognise the number. Simon, how are we? It's just... When I heard that the rumours this podcast may be coming back, I got a little excited. Now I'm on the podcast again. I am super excited. But my question is this where my $5 a month goes? Back to the same old podcast we had before? Where's my new roads? Where's these expansions to Watopia? Actually, we'll talk about the expansions of Watopia, I'm sure. But
it's a little bit of added value for Zwift subscribers. And listen. It's great to have you back, and I'm looking forward to hearing your feisty Australian opinions.
I've got a few of those.
Good stuff to talk about, which we will get to in a short while. And yo, dude, Nathan Guerra, you've only gone and got married during my cafe stop, and what's more, to one hell of a bike rider. Details, dude. How did that happen?
Well, we took full advantage of, the patented Zwift tandem that Eric Schlange had launched. We were the early testers, just kidding, of course. But, it's interesting, just was doing commentary on some high-end racing and got tagged in a post. And I think it was 2021 in October. Slowly became friends. I was like, do you want to ride on Zwift? We start riding on Zwift together virtually. And then it was like, at a certain point, you get to a point where, like, the expectation to talk starts happening, and you're like, that's when I asked the question, what the heck are we doing here, And we actually found...
So this is a genuine met on Zwift romance that progressed up the aisle.
100%.
Really?
Oh, 100%. Gabriella and I 100% would not know each other unless we had met through Zwift. And then we used Eric Schlange's place as neutral ground, actually. No, thank you very much, Eric. So it was definitely a really awesome...
Living proof of the power of Zwift. And as Nathan indicated there, as this is a special festive occasion, we've got all the Zwifty big guns out. My friend, and without doubt, the world #1 authority on all things Zwift, it's Eric Schlange of Zwift Insider. Hey, Eric.
Hello, Simon. You flatter me with your kind words and your dulcet British tones.
Well, do you know what? I was thinking of things to do coming up on Zwiftcast, and I was thinking we have a TV show here in the UK called Mastermind, where you have a specialist subject, and then they get like experts to test the contestant on his or her specialist subject. I thought we could do this on the Zwiftcast with you, actually. I thought we could invite the listeners to ask the most difficult, obscure, niche questions possible about Zwift. Put you in the chair and see whether you could answer them. I'd be confident. I'd put money on you.
As long as I'm allowed to search my own website for the answers, then I'm in.
Okay, well, we might well do that in coming weeks. Well, okay, here we are, back all together. And in the hallowed words of the old rocker from Rainbow, let's start off with Since You've Been Gone. Since I've been gone, there's been some seismic changes in Zwift. Let's quickly rattle through those. First and foremost, I think management changes and a very rapid summary of really big management changes at HQ. Inspirational founder Eric Min, so closely associated with Zwift, did step back from day-to-day operations, and a new guy from Amazon came in as top dog. Now, Eric didn't leave, but he did definitely take a step back. We'll call the Amazon guy because it just makes it easier from here on in. But under 2 years later, Eric Min is back in like full operational control, and Amazon guy is gone out the door. Eric, I'm going to come to you on this. What's the Zwift Insider on this? I heard a rumour that Eric Min effectively marched into a board meeting and said, I want my company back. I might be slightly abbreviating and dramatising here, but from what you know, and I know you know a lot,
I don't know exactly how it unfolded, Simon, but I will tell you this. I had some long chats with Eric Min this past January, and while he didn't name any names or talk about short-term plans with me, it was really clear that he wasn't happy with Zwift's growth under Amazon guy's recent leadership. Eric wanted to see, it was clear he wanted to see some big change, and he wanted to see the community put back at the center of Zwift. And a couple of weeks after we hung out, it was announced that Amazon guy was leaving, along with a couple of other C-suite guys that he had brought in. And that was the start of some major reshuffling in terms of focus and leadership at Zwift.
And it has put Eric Min back where he always has been, which is not only the kind of figurehead and to an extent the public face of the company, but now in operational control, leader of the gang. Well, he's not quite chairman of the board, but you know what I mean. I mean, he is now back in a number one leadership position as far as I can see.
Yeah, he certainly is. And he's back interacting with the community and keeping his finger on the pulse of the Watopians, the employees at Zwift, for sure. He's bringing them back together, reuniting them behind the vision, but also keeping tabs on the community much more closely.
Yeah. And, that might be partly why I got the call about Zwiftcast, but we'll go into that a little later in the episode. Look, I'm not going to do a round table on every point on the catch-up, or we're going to be here all day. It did seem to me, Shane, as an outside observer, I must say, but it did seem to me that the Amazon guy did seem to have the effect of kind of slicker, quicker game updates. I mean, always a bugbear for us, the speed of Zwift updates and stuff, but that seemed to improve a lot. Stuff seemed to happen faster. Was that right?
I think so. As someone who keeps a very, very close eye on the updates, because I love doing little videos on them and showing people what's new, I've been busy, a lot busier in the last, I'm trying to think the time frame we have to talk about now, probably the last 12 months to 18 months than I have been in the past. But it's not leaps forward. It's not steps forward. They're just sort of shuffling a little faster. I think we're in the same spot as what we would be, rather than just dumping a big update every few months. Every few weeks, there's something new coming out. It's just trickling through. But I think people don't really see those big leaps that happen as part of that trickling through. Anyhow, look, at the end of the day, there's more videos and more content to talk about for Zwift. There's more things to do in game. So it's been a good change and definitely a positive change.
Yeah, I think. I mean, he's gone now, but let's hope that pattern that maybe he established continues.
it's a good point. I think that there's something that definitely Amazon Guy and Amazon Tribe had brought in a lot of ways. And that would be organizationally, they probably had a lot of experience in delivering software. And so with that experience in delivering software, I definitely noticed from a technical perspective about how to do that in an orderly fashion that just gets it there on time was happening. Now, whether or not what's being delivered and what's being connected to on a platform that's about growing communities that doesn't have a product without its people, that side, I think, is probably what Eric was thinking about, and it was why we see such a big shift toward community. I think it's a good move, but I do think a lot of good things were brought as well from the Amazon Tribe and Guy.
Well, maybe a bit of that discipline. Not that there wasn't discipline before, but, certainly things seemed a bit slicker and quicker. Interesting. Well, I think there were rumours that we were going to get Eric Min on in one of these early episodes, and I will be pressing the buttons at HQ to try and make that happen. It'd be good to ask him some of those questions when he comes on. Okay, let's move on. Even though we are bored rigidly senseless talking about it, as I suspect are most Zwifters, there has, in case you hadn't noticed, been a price rise. It was hefty, but then it had been years and years and years without one. To me, Zwift is now at about the right price, but at a time of very stretched personal budgets, it was always going to raise a fuss and going to raise a holler, and so it proved, Eric Schlange.
Ooh, it sure did, Simon. The social threads were endless, and the townsfolk were angry. It was definitely a different response than Zwift got back in 2017 when they raised the price from $10 to $15. But at the same time, I think our view of the overall community sentiment is far from perfect. We're just seeing the comments on the threads. It's sort of impossible from our seat to know exactly how many people actually stopped their Zwift subscription as a result of this. But I doubt Zwift will ever tell us those numbers either.
You got a bit of insight into this because I think traffic on your site is maybe a bit of a proxy, so you've got kind of hard math there. But you also, you're very well connected in the community, and I'm sure there's an awful lot of stuff goes on offline that we don't see represented in words and pictures on Zwift Insider. Did you get the sense that it cost them a lot of subscribers? And I know it's wild guesswork, but, a kind of intuitively based view of it. What do you think?
Intuitively, I would say no, it didn't cost them a lot of subscribers. It's hard to read because it happened right during the summer downturn anyway. So you do see a bit of a downturn in the last month or two, but you do every year. So it's hard to know what to attribute that to. But if I was to put numbers on it, I would say there was maybe a 10% shrinkage or less as a result of the price rise. But that's, as you said, wild guesswork.
Shane, we can and will never know, I suspect. But do you think we've seen a wave of mass cancellations? Have people followed through on all those flouncy threats?
I don't think we've seen any more cancellations than we would at a standard airport on a normal day. Just a few here and there. And look, we're in off-season, so between now and the middle of September, I've got the numbers. I've got to keep track of those numbers for peak Zwift, which I know is going to be coming back. Yeah, we're off-season, so we really, really don't know. I mean, there's the vocal minority online, and I'm part of that, being in all the forums and very chatty, responding to everyone and things, but I don't know. We don't know. Look, even if they, let's say hypothetically, they lose 30% of their clientele, that's also 30% of people who may have had some pretty potato-like computers and were a big support load. Maybe it's some shedding, maybe just cutting the fat, maybe.
Yeah.
Unintentionally, of course. But look, no, people come back to Zwift.
Yeah.
I think that's going to happen. But look, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll. I mean, the timing took me a little bit by surprise when I first saw the price rise. I thought, well, why do it in June when people are going to be leaving anyway? But then the more I thought about it, I thought, well, actually, maybe they just wanted to get all the pain out of the way all at once. And then when the real kind of siren call to Ride Indoors comes back, as you say, around about September, then they're not combining that with a price rise. And in the end, when I thought about it, I thought probably the timing, they'd done it right. I think maybe a little bit of deliberate obfuscation going on there, but, why not? If you can deliberately obfuscate, why wouldn't you? Nathan, in your network, a little bit more much more racing focused, do you think the price rise was felt disproportionately? I mean, I'm asking this because a rival platform, IndieVelo, is free and is particularly attractive to racers. Did you get more kind of backwash and splashback than maybe Eric saw?
Well, what's really interesting is that the racing population now is like trifurcated instead, not just bifurcated. So it's like, as far as this topic would go, I would say that there's just, do I have money for this right now? That's one, like amongst the racers for sure. And then they're going to go to a free platform. The hardcore gamer tech / racer. So like they all kind of lump together. So like the person who's like really into the racing on Zwift or is really, really into racing in general and also kind of gets the techie side of how to race, like and how all of the dynamics of it work, they are more interested in some ways in what IndieVelo is doing in some ways. And then this is kind of a push over the edge. But then the general weekend warrior that just wants a workout is a massive population right now that is racing a lot. Zee Racing is really, really doing a good job. We were doing like a Monday stream for a really long time that had a ton of people really excited about it. And so like the old school KISS idea of keep it simple, stupid. I think they renamed that branding, but I like it still. Keep it simple, stupid is definitely like this whole crew now that is like, let's just go race our bikes. And Zwift definitely held on to a lot of that, I think. So
yeah, and Zwift makes it easy, and it comes with the infrastructure, and it comes with the ease, and it comes with the familiarity. Yeah, and big fields. Yeah. Good point. I'm so glad we got you back on. Good point, mate. Very good point. Okay, last little piece on this Since You've Been Gone feature. It's probably only me who remembers that song, actually. I'm so old. Anyway, here's an excerpt from what at the time was the last ever Zwiftcast. Nothing short of a bombshell. Wahoo acquire RGT, promising massive investment, mega marketing, and fast new feature development. First time since it launched, Zwift faces a serious, well-resourced and knowledgeable rival. Is Zwift's age of dominance drawing to a close? Well, that aged well, eh? Last Zwiftcast, it was all about Wahoo versus Zwift, the big battle of the giants, and it went precisely nowhere. Within a year or so, Wahoo had shut down RGT, Wahoo itself was in a big financial mess, and then shortly after that, they'd kissed and made up with Zwift. They hadn't, at that point, been bosom buddies. In fact, they were suing each other vigorously. Tumultuous stuff, Shane, in the kind of bigger picture of the indoor riding architecture of companies. Big changes.
Oh, for sure. If you had said, predict what's going to happen in 12 months before that happened, that was not on my bingo card, not in the top 100 at all. But post-COVID, things are strange. And if you listen to any of the other podcasts and posts about where the bicycle industry is at, after that massive boom, it's come back, a bit of backlash. No one really knows where things are at. I think they needed each other. I really do. As trying to sail solo, with Zwift then pushing into the hardware side of things. Software's a big difference to hardware. I think we've spoken about this before many times. Getting into the hardware game, Wahoo with its established network of distributors worldwide, they know the game well. So as a consumer, I like what I'm seeing. And as an Aussie, we can now get some of the Zwift hardware, which is now Wahoo, here in Australia. Canadians can get it as well. In New Zealand, you shouldn't be too far away, I wouldn't think. It's a good thing, but not something I would have predicted. But RGT did have a lot of good people behind it too, though. So I believe a lot of people from RGT have moved on, and maybe not out of the space yet, from what I'm hearing. So let's stay tuned.
Eric, it's an absolute open secret in the industry that Eric Min and Chip Hawkins, the grand fromage at Wahoo, at one time didn't really see eye to eye, to put it mildly, personally, I think, as well as business-wise. They were suing each other, as we've previously referred to. But now Wahoo and Zwift are in a pretty tight partnership, actually. I mean, they've done more than kiss and make up. They've almost done a Nathan and Gabriella, you know. They've plighted their troth. I mean, they are like best buddies now. Is that for real? I mean, do they have such strong mutual interests now? I mean, you know, obviously Wahoo had to recover from getting a pretty good kicking, really.
Yeah, I don't know the exact status of their personal relationship. I know for sure Chip and Eric are two very different personalities. If you've met them. But here's the thing, neither of them is an idiot when it comes to business. And I think what's happened is they've both agreed that it makes more business sense to work together to grow the overall indoor cycling market. They keep both of them use the pie analogy. They talked about how do you fight over the size of your piece of the pie, or do you figure out how to grow the overall pie? And they seem to both be in agreement that it's time to be in pie growing mode now. And as you know, Simon, I always support more pie. I support this.
Well, nobody who doesn't like more pie. But, you know, more pie is like an awful lot better than more lawyers. And
yes.
Maybe they finally came around to that.
Invest in pie, not lawyers.
You know, they're surely, they're very tight on Zwift Ride, which is what we're going to talk about in a few moments. Things change, don't they? Things change and people react to them, and quite rightly so. When the facts change, I change my mind, as a politician once said. I mean, that to me was a kind of cursory glance of the really big things I've missed over the last 2 years. With your encyclopedic knowledge, Eric, last 2 years, anything really, really, really big? I mean, there have been regular expansions, well received, I think.
All the expansions have been well received. Last 2 years, I'm not sure that there's much apart from the play controller idea, rolling those out. That's been big news, but also pretty polarizing. There's still a lot of racers who don't like them being used in races. They don't like the pay for performance sort of aspect of it. But I think we're going to look back on Zwift in several years and see that the unrolling of the first play controllers was something that was pivotal in the overall direction of where things were going.
Yeah, no, that did look quite big to me. Nathan, has there been a moment in the last 2 years when you looked in the mirror one morning when brushing your teeth and thought, I really wish we still had that Zwiftcast because I want to talk about that? What would that have been about?
Yes, definitely. And it would be about the landscape of this market. That's what it would be about. How much it's changed. Having competition in this market, the positioning, the responses to that, who's coming together, what the moves are that are being made from a strategy point of view and how they'll work out. That's the most seismic to me.
Well, listen, I'm sure many, many other things have happened over the last couple of years worthy of discussion, but we must move on. So let's do that. Well, in a sure sign that there's no such thing as a sure thing, Zwift launched their very own smart bike, which is going to start shipping any day now. I say that whole thing about the sure thing because once upon a time, Zwift said they'd never be a hardware company. Then they launched a hardware division. Then they shut that down. Now they've got their own smart bike. To be fair, many, many things have changed over that timeline, as we were just talking about, and Zwift has adapted to those changes with pivots of their own. I do think it's fair to say, looking at all the coverage that the Zwift Smart Bike launch received, near universal acclaim, I think, would probably be a fair description of it. There wasn't an awful lot of criticism, even from people who looked hard to find any. The godlike guru DC Rainmaker, called it, I think, the future default choice for any indoor rider, which big claim, really big claim. And much of that has centred not only on the tech, which is, of course, more than adequate, but on the price point. I mean, this baby is cheap. Well, cheap in the smart bike universe. Shane, we'll get the down low on the tech side in a moment, but Eric, I mean, that price point, it's kind of staggering, isn't it? And staggeringly attractive.
That's exactly it, Simon. It's much more, it's not about a feature-by-feature comparison with other smart bikes on the market, although I would argue that the Zwift Ride holds its own there. But the big news here is that it costs half as much as the next cheapest bike, the Watt bike, and it costs a third of what the premium bikes from Wahoo and Tacx are priced at, and that is crazy. It turns the market on its head, and it expands the market. It grows the pie. And Zwift is the only company that can do this, I would argue, because their goal is ongoing profit from a subscriber base and not from hardware sales.
You mean it's almost a loss leader?
I think so.
Well, certainly looking at the price of it, you do wonder, and the feature set, well, how do they do that? And like you say, maybe they've got other reasons for doing that. Who's going to buy this, Eric? Who do you think is going to buy this? I mean, there was a point just post-pandemic where the received wisdom was every single person who wants a smart trainer has now got a smart trainer. Who hasn't got a smart bike right now, and who's going to buy this one?
I think there's three markets that I see. The biggest one, and I told Eric Min this when I first saw this concept, that the smart frame works on a multiple different smart trainers. I said that the biggest number of sales you're going to get are from existing Zwifters who want an indoor setup that's always there, and they're tired of swapping their one bike off and on. So once they go for sale in the fall with just the frame, I think they're going to sell a ton of those. So the single bike owners would be one of them. I think another one is the expanding market. The people who they aren't even cyclists. They don't have a bike. It's the people I see posting on Reddit, hey, I'm interested in this Zwift thing, but what bike should I buy for it? They have no idea. So they want to buy one thing and have it show up to their house and be able to go on Zwift, like the Peloton idea. And I don't blame them. If you're not a cyclist, it's a lot to try to figure out how to buy a bike and a trainer that works with it and wrap your head around that. And the third one I would say are people who are, maybe there's two different Zwifters in the house, but they want to have one setup that's adjustable between the two. That's a smaller group, but I think all three are valid.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analysis, and I could get behind all three of those cases. I could absolutely see that. Shane, I think it's fair to say that it has been very largely welcomed with open arms, particularly on the price side, but on the tech side, I don't want to be negative, but there just are one or two little niggles that quite a lot of people have mentioned online. One being crank length, and then the second one being, you could have solved this had it not been for the second thing, which is a truly retro bottom bracket. I mean, geez Louise, square taper, where did that come from?
Look, I've done my teardown. I haven't put my video out just yet, so I know a little bit more about how things are built and how things are put together, and it makes a little bit more sense once I've actually had things apart. So to address the first question that people had, and the first question I had as well, is what crank length options are there? And the answer is yes, one. And that was it, 170. And 170 really that's the middle of everything. That's what bike Atom went with. People are moving towards shorter cranks nowadays anyway, but we can't look at trends. We've got to look at indoor cycling. That was a surprise. So my next question is, okay, let's swap this out. What hacks can we do? I've already had it before. As soon as I was introduced to the bike, I had a set of carbon composite bars ready to install before I even had the bike itself. So I'm already looking at upgrades for cranks too, but it can't be done. The reason being is it's not a standard bottom bracket, but that's a good thing. They've gone for an oversized bearings in the bottom bracket and an oversized square taper. So it's not just square taper, it's oversized based on proven spin bike tech. So think of this as a spin bike, not as an outdoor bike. And it kind of makes a little bit more sense there. So the bearings are a lot bigger. They are pressed into the frames. There's no real bottom bracket. It's just pressed bearings. They should last a long time. They're saying they've tested them for 25,000 Ks indoors. They are quite protected. Again, indoors, you're not going through puddles or rain or any contaminants. So although you might sweat on the thing, but it's quite protected. But you can't swap the cranks out. And that's due to their own custom forged alloy. And
yeah. And you know what? I mean, in the end, okay, if you're a Tour de France bike rider, then an extra 2.5 mil on your crown length, you might feel it if you're particularly fussy. But really, 98% of Zwifters, 99% of Zwifters, does that adjustability, plus or minus 2.5, plus or minus 5 mil, does that really matter?
No, Q factor for me is a big one. Any further than a few mil on a road bike setup, this is 150, so it's very close. But crank length, I was on there ripping out intervals. I was doing the grade, doing the FTP tests, and just pedaling away. From a ride perspective, it rides. In my review, I was pretty quick on how it rides because it's a kicker core with a nice fat chain, and it's the gear changes are instant through the Zwift shifting. I think it'll land pretty well. I think it's going to land even better when it ships just as a frame, and we have more compatibility with other options out there, it solves the problem. Mine's just there. Again, the other day I had 20 minutes. 20 minutes for me to put a bike on the trainer and get the gear indexing right. It's 11 speed, not 12. I got on and got 15 minutes done and then I'm like, that was actually a decent little workout. It's just these little tiny things that you only realize once you have it. I'm impressed.
Ringmen always used to call them the pain points, and the whole idea was to remove the pain points. And we have been a bit kind of niggly on square taper bottom brackets and crown length and all that kind of stuff. But overview, they've done a pretty good job here, and the price is like super attractive.
I was floored. I'm like, okay, so that's the price without the trainer. Like that's the $12.99 US without, and they're like, no, with trainer. I'm like, hang on. That's actually $1,000 or $800 cheaper than a high-end trainer from another company, just the trainer. This is a one-go solution. And I see a market for this I see a lot of people with two setups. They have bike, someone like me, and let's say my wife, she mightn't have a setup. So this is a N+1 for indoor setups. Couple this with an Apple TV, away you go. You've got yourself another little setup altogether. Super keen to see where it lands when it's shipped. So as we're speaking now, hasn't shipped yet. The pre-orders or the orders will start happening very soon. That's always the test when people get these to start pulling them apart themselves. But I've had fun doing it myself.
Well, thanks for that for now, Shane. And of course, listeners, as everybody of course will know, but nothing wrong with a little reminder, Shane's YouTube channel is the home of all robust testing and tons of detail on bike tech in general, but particularly bike tech aimed at Zwifters. So do go check that out. Nathan, let's talk aesthetics and design for a minute, although we've got more to come on that next week or next episode, which I'll talk about in a minute. But that front peg leg, Nathan, it looks weird as hell. I mean, it looks kind of fundamentally unstable, but although it's not. I mean, testers swear it's super stable and isn't going to fall over like some kind of wheelbarrow, three-legged thing. I don't know. Something like that. Anyway, Nathan, I don't know if you've ridden one, but would you be confident unleashing one of your legendary race-winning sprints on the peg leg?
Oh, it's captain. It's a captain pirate. Even if it's got a peg leg, it can hold the ship. It's good to go. I actually won a sprint race racing on it at ZHQ. The only thing I would say, it's not the peg leg up front. It's the same problem anyone would always have. It's whatever trainer you're on. Stabilize the trainer, right? And so Sometimes the core can be a little bit all over the place because it's not as heavy as like a regular kicker. So, and hopefully as this expands to more trainers, I think, the stability depends on what's at the back of the bike, not what's at the front. I mean, it's like a front wheel only has one. If you think about the plane of existence, right?
It's got like an inch of contact with the road.
Yeah, it's actually more stable than that, like way more stable than that. So it totally can and the way it's just what it's made out of, it feels, the steel is real, kind of a feel. As far as if you're riding bikes, it definitely feels like that. So you can huck a sprint into it for sure.
Seal of approval. As a matter of interest, Nathan, what's your peak wattage in a sprint at the moment?
Right now, 1100, I would say probably. When I'm going good and actually training, it's like 12 to 14. Like, I gotta get in the weight room if I want 14. I gotta really get in the weight room if I want 14. Can I just add, I'm very excited. Hopefully, like, if this could, because in the past, Simon, we've talked a lot on other Zwiftcasts about how do we get that gym going membership, like, onto Zwift? How do we get these setups? I've talked to the local YMCA about Zwift setups. I think that I could actually get this into the local YMCA. Like, I'd love to pilot program this, because you can have an iPad, have a YMCA membership or whatever, that actually has an account, and push a button and go. And I think that's a great introductory to people to reduce the friction. It's a start. I really wish we had that Tron bike, as you do as well. You wish you had a Tron bike, but a different one. But I really do wish we had that all-in-one bike, but this is a great start, and I really like it.
Can I just say this is the Newsworkcast, and we will not be making jokes about my possession or otherwise of any kind of bike beginning with the letter T. Jolly good. Well, listen, no doubt when gazillions of these things get out into the world, we'll see the results of real-world testing at scale, but the signs do look fairly good to me. I think Eric outlined a terrific business case there with who the potential buyers are, and I agree with you, Nathan, on the simplicity for kind of like group settings. My guess is Zwift will end up selling an absolute shed load of these at that price. And on the next episode, we'll have an interview with Graham Stoney, the chief engineer designer. Actually, I don't know if that's his title, but he's like the main man of Zwift Ride. So if I've got questions for him, if you listeners have questions for him, do let me know in Zwiftcast listeners on Facebook.
Ride on!
Okay, folks, time for a little Zwiftcast navel gazing. Why are we back and what have we got planned? Well, I was having my breakfast the other day, as it happened, browsing Zwift Riders on my Facebook feed, because I've always stayed in touch, and up popped a call from a very senior cheese at HQ. "Simon," said my caller, "how would you feel about bringing back the Zwiftcast?" Listeners, my flabber was gasted, colour me pretty surprised, but as we chatted, I could see the rationale. It's not that HQ have missed having the odd brick lobbed at them by us, although in fact they have a bit, because the Zwiftcast was an effective channel for accountability for HQ. It was more they felt that the podcast was a little bit of added value for Zwift subscribers, and it was something that helps foster the Zwift community, which has always been super important for Zwift, and is particularly important in coming months. More of that later. It also helps Zwift staffers at all levels hear what Zwifters are thinking, albeit through our voices. Anyway, I said I'd give it some serious thought, which I did. The thing was that my reasons for bringing an end to the Zwiftcast hadn't really changed. I've got bad hearing loss, and that's not improved. In fact, it's got a bit worse. And as I'm now based a lot of the time in Spain, the fact is I just wasn't riding indoors as much as I used to. All that said, I can't pretend I wasn't just a teeny bit flattered and a teeny bit proud. The Zwiftcast had been a big part of my life, and I was proud of it. On reflection, I decided I'd like it to have a second life. But, a deaf podcaster, even if like me you like a challenge, is a big ask, and I don't see me returning to riding indoors a whole lot, except maybe a couple of months a year. So I went back to HQ with a proposal. I suggested I'd come back, but largely to train up a new team in the ways of the Zwiftcast. I'd do a few episodes in my old role, but it was time for the sorcerer to have apprentices. In this period, I'd remain for a few months, but behind the scenes, because believe it or not, this thing isn't just thrown together, you know, there has a bit of production behind it. Okay, said HQ, and here we are. Anyway, time to meet one of the sorcerer's apprentices. A big hello to Dave Towle. Dave, you'll be a familiar name to many Zwifters, but perhaps not all. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. If you go over that, I'm not going to go mad, are you? 30 seconds is to answer the question, who is Dave Towle?
Well, I'm so grateful, Simon, for even this opportunity, but I'll keep it tight as you're teaching me. But I'm a kid from Boulder who fell in love with bikes early on. I was really lucky to be in a mecca for the sport, so it connected me to this entire world, and honestly, Zwift was a natural fit. Like my race resume, I've announced every start and every finish of every Amgen Tour of California, Tour of Utah, Tour of Missouri, Tour de Georgia. I've announced the World Road Championships in Richmond. I have announced in Ghent, in the Citadel there of World 6-Day Racing. I'm the only ever English language announcer to have announced there in Ghent. So that's my cycling resume. But then I jumped in before COVID, or right at that time, with Nathan with esports and with Zwift Community Live. I had an absolute blast, and I connected with the Zwift community, and it has been a really, really strong connection. One of the best things that's happened to me in my life, and that's where I am now, living here in Fort Collins, Colorado. I announce races pretty much every weekend during the season, and that's it.
And here we are, and welcome to you, Dave. Well, are you ready, amigo, to step into some Zwiftcast-shaped shoes in a gradual fashion? Of course, we don't want to rush things.
I am so honored. Honestly, it makes me feel proud. I mean, working with Nathan has been fantastic. We've had a blast, and this is an extension of that for me, that truly talk about a vote of confidence and something that I'm going to take super seriously, but try to keep the same joy and spirit alive that we've worked hard to craft along the way. So it's they say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Right? And for me, that's exactly what this
That's the end of the job interview, Dave. Well, very well done. Excellent. Stay with us for the remainder of the episode. But whilst we are navel-gazing and talking about the future of the Zwiftcast, there is one giant grey pachyderm in an enclosed space that we must address. Boys. Well, lads, fellas, and that's it, really. We're all boys, lads, fellas. The Zwiftcast is a bit of a boys' club, and that, my friends, puts us firmly on the wrong side of history. We need female voices to balance out our boyness, so we'd love any female Zwifters who'd like to become a part of the team to get in touch. Send me a message, reach out, I'll be there. I'd really love to hear from you. Okay, well, Dave needs to get out of the gate, so I asked him to talk to noted ex-pro rider and very talented performance coach Kristan Armstrong about the new feature on Zwift called the Grade, billed as a super efficient, effective and accurate alternative to the dreaded FTP test.
It is great to welcome three-time Olympic gold medal winner Kristan Armstrong to the Zwiftcast and get her insight. We're here talking about the Grade, and I heard you've been out riding on the Grade, Kristan.
Yeah, I mean, it is a straight uphill climb, and it is a lot of fun. Whenever Zwift comes out with a new feature, I really love to learn about every aspect. And also, as a coach now, I like to know all the different ways I can challenge and bring new, maybe opportunities to the athletes I coach.
Let's just jump right in to help someone who may be, let's say, a little inexperienced with performance testing. We're going to get them out there on the Grade. Let's start with a pacing strategy, Kristan. Is an aggressive start advisable?
I actually have a mantra many times. It just depends. I have a number of them, but one of my favorites is, am I giving it everything I have? Can I go any harder? And so I'm always just trying to focus on the task at hand. The grade is set up in segments, 10 segments. So that's another opportunity to keep your mind focused on one segment at a time. In that next segment, can you actually match that power and time again? So now you have a game you're playing with yourself the entire time. And then when you do the last segment, you have switchbacks. And you can go corner to corner, you can go back to the segment, you hit the ice, you hit the snow, you're on the backside of the epic KOM. I mean, I'm telling you what, they've done a great job with just keeping you mentally in the game.
When you finish the test, how close to empty should you be? Are we talking about, say, a dark star collapsing level?
Absolutely. You want to give it your all. Honestly, for me, when I'm finished, I'm pushing as hard as I can over that finish line. And I actually have to stop and I lean over my bike and I'm trying to get the rate of like my heart rate, my breathing rate back in control. I'm trying to come down.
One tech detail I'd love to get your thoughts on, Kristan, is trainer resistance. I've heard a number of Zwifters reporting that they might prefer going down to even 0 so they don't have to worry about shifting. What are your thoughts on that?
Now, where it gets interesting is the grade is 8.6% average, okay? It gets up to much higher percentages than that throughout the ride. At that point, when you get above 7%, sometimes your natural cadence, now we're talking about revolutions per minute, your cadence, RPM, sometimes it falls below what's natural. And we start losing the ability to produce power aerobically, and we actually start using our muscles, and it causes muscular fatigue, which then can become a detriment. So what I would recommend for a first time going up the grade is if you take your trainer resistance difficulty to 50%, it's going to split all those in half. So we can look at that grade, and now if we're riding 10%, we're really riding 5%.
Do you turn off your brain or switch it on during the test? Everybody has their own method, but for you, what was the procedure like?
Mantras keep my mind focused. If you let your mind drift during any all-out effort, then you can lose a lot of power, even if it's for 5 seconds at a time.
Do most folks benefit from riding with others?
I would recommend that you do a functional threshold power assessment, an FTP assessment on the grade with other people. I would do an assessment on my own because training 2 different ways, there's one way of being dictated by others. There's another way of how strong are you mentally? Can you do this by yourself? And if you're a time trialist, if you're into triathlon, if you're training for something that's going to really take that strength of your mind, then why wouldn't you try to do this by yourself? So I think there's positives to others helping you go to new levels, but there's also positives to helping you train that hurt locker and really having to not use other people to focus your effort, but doing it on your own. It's 2 different sorts of efforts.
Perfect. The answer's both. Makes sense. Let's talk about warming up.
I like about 15 minutes to warm up when I'm on Zwift for any hard effort. When you have a standard warm-up for an assessment or for a race or for a group ride, your mind gets in a different space. It's a routine. It's something that you are actually preparing for, and you know by the end of that warm-up, you're ready to roll. So you're actually preparing your body and your mind. But remember, you're going to save the effort for the grade. Don't leave your effort on the warm-up.
The climb seems ideal, but what about Zwifters that don't see themselves as a climber?
When you're on a flat road and you're trying to produce torque, meaning pressure against those pedals, when you're going up a hill, there's just natural resistance that's happening. And you have to push through this, which is creating torque. My opinion is my best functional threshold power is going to be done on a grade. I know they call it the grade. It's done on a grade. There's a reason. Most people are going to produce more power and have an easier time producing power on some sort of grade. Whether you're a climber or not, when you're taking an assessment, you're not judging off of other people. You're basically trying to produce as much power as possible. So I would really encourage people to really think differently when doing the assessment and not think of it as, I have to be a climber to produce great power up a climb.
Our man Simon uses a micro rest technique. I love it. Just a couple short pedal strokes off before jumping back in. Let's just say a quick mental reset. So when you're in the box, is it advisable or maybe a cop-out?
For me, ultimate goal is to have the highest average power at the end of my assessment or my race. And if I have to breathe for 5 seconds over the top of a climb, or I just have to take a breath because I know that I'm not going to come back because I've gotten to that point with maybe I know my heart rate, the intuition and the ability to listen and know your body, there's nothing more powerful than that. And data is good. Data is good to drive some of our decisions we make, how we approach the course, but data is not the only thing we need to pay attention to. We have to listen to our body.
Again, great advice. If you do this right, it hurts. Let's be honest. So how often do you recommend doing something like a test on the grade?
If you're super new to these sorts of assessments, then we're going to test a little more often. I at first actually recommend every 4 weeks because your jumps happen so quickly that you don't want to be training in the wrong zones for too long. So 4 weeks. Now, if you're coming and you're a fitness fanatic and you want to make sure that you're keeping things in check and you want to be accountable to training in the right zones and not just losing, kind of what people call losing it. For the general person, I would say 6 to 8 weeks.
Thank you so much, Kristan, and a big congrats on 5 years at Pivot there in Boise. Sounds like things are going great. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Nathan, very simple one for you. The grade, hit or miss?
Spot on target. Totally, it's an absolute hit. Because I don't like 20 minutes up and over the top of Watopia Mountain. I'd rather do the grade. And that's my FTP test. And I definitely celebrated over the top getting my first grade. And it actually nailed my FTP, which was really surprising to me. Yeah, that was, but, if you go fast up the grade, you get this really high wattage number, and then because it takes the percentage based off of a critical power scheme, it totally, you're like, yeah, I'm doing 400 watts, 335. What? but it's right. It was totally right. It does a great job.
Well, that's a real vote of confidence. And I have to say that reflects all the feedback I've seen. Like, everybody has said, well, I was really surprised, but it absolutely nailed my FTP to what I thought it was or what it was last time I tested. So, Dave, it is an FTP test, but not as we know it, Jim.
Well, it was interesting when I talked with Kristan about it because, she had so much to say. We talked for 45 minutes about the grade, and I had to wrap it up. There was so much that excited her. And one of the things, she owns a fitness center. It's called Pivot there. And people doing this together, there's something about what happens when you're not just in a laboratory test setting and it becomes clinical. This is much more about what actually Nathan and I have seen a ton of motivation, getting stoked. You're going to get better numbers when you're happy, right? Or when you're in that mode. There's something about central nervous system with athletes. Not everybody performs the same way. Some people like to feel pressure, others don't. But it was really, really interesting to see how the grade probably gets the most out of a majority of people.
Yeah, it's a pretty good point now. It's a super easy way, isn't it, of doing a communal FTP test. You just, you arrange to meet online or whatever, or set up a group ride. Eric would no doubt, with his encyclopedic knowledge, tell us the best way of doing this. But it's a really good point now. It's actually very, very easy to a way to do it with a bunch of mates. But I guess they'd all have to be within your range of FTP to make it work, maybe? Anyway, whatever. Eric, using your insight from Zwift Insider, do you think it's going to be popular in as much as anything painful can be popular?
I think it will. I just looked this morning and Strava already shows over 33,000 attempts up the grade by 24,000 people, and it launched less than 2 weeks ago. I think once people try this, they'll discover, like Nathan did and like I did, me and Nathan both did the grade for the first time together. I think they'll discover that it's more fun, or maybe I just say it's less terrible than the standard 20-minute test. That was my experience, at least. It's just more engaging with all the data on screen and riders to chase up the hill.
And aesthetically as well. I mean, Kristan made a great point. I thought, Dave, that, it's divided into 10 segments, so you can do that thing about, well, can I do the next segment as strongly as I did the last segment, and maybe do the next segment a little stronger even than that. And then you get towards the end and you've got the switchbacks, and then it's like, okay, if I can get from that corner to that corner at 300 watts, because breaking down a test, it is about chunking it down, isn't it, into achievable parts. And it looks like there's been a lot of thought put into the aesthetics of that as well as the mechanics of it.
100%. I mean, mindset is everything in racing, even in getting fit. You're overcoming some hurdles, and the old saying about how do you eat an elephant? Well, it's one bite at a time, and definitely that's how she takes this test and breaks it down. And yeah, there is such a huge psychological element in the sport, and the grade helps make it more humane, I think, as Eric is saying.
Yeah. Significant achievement, that. I think, as we do when we're very pleased with them, we should all say, well done, Zwift, on the grade. I think pretty much a big success.
Ride on!
Okay, well, in the long history of the Zwiftcast, we've never had a moratorium on discussing rival platforms and how they're doing. One has been especially eye-catching since the Zwift price rise, and that's Middle East-owned MyWhoosh. Shane, I think you in particular have some strong feelings on their marketing strategy as they sought to capitalise on HQ's decision to whack up the subs.
Yeah. I saw this the other day, and I posted it to our little chat, and I'm like, this is a very interesting targeted approach. I can absolutely see what they're doing. So the idea was that if you were to send them an email of your status and your progression with other platforms, read between the lines, Zwift, they would then credit your account to be at that level or have that many kilometers or something on their platform as well. And away you go. You continue with your status. But my question, Simon, is, when have you ever gone in and bought a new car from the dealer and you're like, mate, I've done 85,000 clicks on the old car. Do you mind just winding the dial forward on the new car for me? So when my mates get in, they can see I've driven 85,000 Ks and we continue on. Or maybe you're playing Mario Kart and you're top of the pops in Mario Kart. You're playing online, you're beating all the kids, you're doing that online discussion they have that isn't quite polite about their mums. But no, now you want to play Gran Turismo. Your points don't roll over. It's a different game. But if you go to Gran Turismo, you then start from scratch. You build yourself up. You unlock things. It's gamified. I was thinking, what would be the ultimate thing that you could do to bring people over, to bring all your friends over? Let's just say, do we give them free credits? Do we give them more worlds? Do we give them... How about we make it free? Everyone will come over. Hang on a minute. It has been free. It still is free. People can migrate over right away for free, and all your mates aren't going over. Well, mine aren't anyway. Not that I have a lot of friends, but I think it's one of those things. Build something great, and people will come. Absolutely. I mean, look at Watopia versus Mercury. I mean, not the Mercury is too bad. You build something great, people will be there. We love Watopia. And, marketing-wise, it's one of those remember those Energizer ads that were this much better than Duracell? They'd call them out. Yeah, they may be, but it's just awkward. You don't go. You just make something great and stick to that. And then they've got every opportunity and apparently all the funds to make something great. So if they do, fantastic. Rising tides.
And Nathan, I think you harbour similar feelings of outrage.
Well, I took a screenshot the other day, and it's, fastest fun was an old Zwift, marketing thing, and it was like, and it's showing up like all the time. Like they got to be paying a lot for it to just constantly showing up, I would think. And it's like scratched over the top of fun is fast, and it says fun is like I don't know, whatever percentage less expensive, 138% less expensive. So then not only is it, are we free as comparative to someone else? It's also like, you're vulnerable right now because you just raised your prices. So we're going to come after you with about that. Like, whoa. And I actually shared it with some people at Zwift. They're like, whoa, guerrilla market. Like, holy cow. And here's the thing that I take away from the background of that, though, is if you're talking about someone else in your marketing, what are you offering? It's a statement. Zwift own the space still, and people are. But you see what Ruby, like when I see a Ruby ad, I don't feel like I'm seeing anything about Zwift. I just see this is what we have to offer, and come check it out.
Yeah. Well, Ruby and all the others are advertising, saying, "Come and use our product because we think our product's good, and this is the ways in which we think it's good," rather than the opposition of just put the prices up, so come and get our free products. I mean, it's fairly negative stuff, Eric, and whilst a bit of rollicking competition is in the finest traditions of both cycling and late-stage capitalism, for me, all of it just left a bit of a sour taste.
Yeah, it's just not classy. And as cyclists, I think we care a lot about class. From a brand management point of view, to me, it just feels like a really short-sighted move by my Whoosh.
I tell you what, there was a presidential campaign recently where they talked about taking the high road. And what I would say is, hey, Zwift, thanks a lot for what I'm going to look forward to this summer, the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift, and doing things like that in this sport, which are extremely positive and extend way, way beyond just business, but more like doing the right thing. And that's one of the reasons I've been so proud to be associated with doing Zwift live events. Nathan and I have done quite a few of those over the years where you show up at a venue and see live Zwifters meeting and see the community actually going from meta to physical. And truly, Zwift has done some amazing things. I'm glad they focus on that.
No, I agree. Take the high road if you possibly can, my Whoosh, if you're listening. Let's discuss the changing face of competition on Zwift. Well, bits of it anyway. HQ recently announced that for Zwift-owned race events, and I'm sure Eric will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right on this. For Zwift-owned race events, finally, they have to be smart trainer only, or at least power meter only events. In other words, you must have either power meters or a smart trainer to enter, or at least be in the results. Yes, the venerable, not to say ancient, Zee Power, or classic trainer setup, is now persona non grata in these events. Now, whilst these setups had their place in increasing accessibility to Zwift, to be honest, they've never had a place in racing. Too inaccurate, unfair on the other racers, too susceptible to either accidental or deliberate cheating. Well, we've been saying it for years, Shane, actually, years and years, but at long last, HQ has seen the light. Can actually understand why it has taken so long, because it's all about accessibility. But Zee Power is dead in Zwift-owned races. 3 cheers for that, eh?
I think we were calling from day 3. Those where we had the NTP time sync client on our computers to get the times right, and I think we were there on the start line with people like Jeff Junkston and the Scotty Weiss and the crew. We're ready, set, go. And then someone would pop in with Zee Power, like, ban Zee Power, get him out of here. There. And I think everyone was okay with that back then. It's just taken this long. I think everyone's still going to be okay with it now. The technology is a lot cheaper too. True power or good enough power is a lot more accessible. Looking at things like the Zwift Ride, the Kicker Core, the market is totally different to where it's come from. So I think if people want to get on and race these proper races, in quotes, or more serious races, you've got to invest, and the investment now is a lot less. So, good. I'm all for this.
Eric, my guess is that this will affect a very small number of people, and I'm also guessing Zwift know that, and it's such a small number, they feel they can now finally do it without too much splashback.
That is exactly right, Simon. One of my sources within Zwift told me that less than 1% of the racers who participated in Zwift games were on virtual power. And they said that those stats hold for other Zwift races as well. So in Zwift's early days, that was a much bigger number because smart trainers were just getting on the scene. But these days, the vast majority of riders are on smart trainers. As you free ride around Watopia, you don't see very many riders who don't have the little lightning bolt next to their name. But it only takes one Zee Power Ranger to blow up a race. So I totally support the move.
Nathan, I mean, you're the authority on this. I mean, no doubt you'll be extremely happy for this development. Purity of racing, and it wasn't necessary to let these people have entry anymore, was it? It was always unfair, and it should have been stopped a long time ago.
Yeah, I agree. There's also the other side of it is like, well, how many of these people are there? And we see this in a lot of the gaming world. It's like, we need as many people as we can because we made this software, and if we alienate people who are paying us, we don't get paid, right? And so there was that, and Eric just made a really good point that it's gotten small enough now that we're not scared to let that go. The reality of how long ago I think this actually could have happened, though, that the sentiment generally across everything about how fair or unfair this is and how many races it was ruining, that's why everyone's like this huge sigh of release, because as you said, one person wrecks the whole thing, like completely. It changes everything. So it's a really good move. And I think it's also a move that signifies a focus on good racing. So in this respect, so more and more of this in the future, I could see coming. Yeah.
Dave, do you have anything to add that's not been said there?
If it's 1%, Simon, of the racers that were out there on Zee Power, I bet you that 1% made up more than a third of the chaos agents that would just disrupt the flow of these races, right? And so, for that reason alone, I mean, as Nathan said, it should have been done a long time
ago. Maybe they didn't know they were chaos agents. So, I mean, we've got to be slightly kind to them, because it was very easy to accidentally cheat as well as deliberately cheat. And I'm sure there was a bit of both going on. Okay, another kind of thing I like the look of in the competitive field was this beat the bots ride. I mean, I know nothing about this. I don't know whether it's a Zwift Ride or a community ride, but it just looked to me to be such a great idea. Basically modelled on the classic cycling training technique, often known as hare and hounds or cat and mouse, and it basically involves being chased. And there ain't no thing that makes you ride faster than being chased. This time, it's not being chased by an angry bear, although that would work too, but by a pack of demonic Zwift bots. It's super simple. You set off, they set off a bit later, aim of the game, don't get caught. I love this format as a participant. Dave, do you second that emotion?
100%. I cannot tell you how many times, this is the classic scenario that makes racing so exciting. The chase down, the finale of the race, where would you rather be the hunter or the hunted? It is so primal and it's exactly like, we've gotten very, very complicated in sports and sometimes in, racing out here. It is bananas of the point structure and all this. And it really comes down to, can you just outlast these guys? And So, don't get caught. Exactly. So sometimes it's good to get back to simple.
Yeah. Good to watch and highly motivational to take part in. Nathan, they could make the bots like super scary, couldn't they? And bad things could happen to you if you got caught, like, I don't know, negative XP or a ceremonial stripping of your garage of desirable bikes, preferably in public. I'll go too far.
You need to read up on your Piaget. We need positive reinforcement. Okay. But no, so yes, but maybe not things I've earned overall that are not part of the event. That would maybe something that's a reward system within the event would be kind of cool. I mean, people are already mad when they losing hurts. So maybe that's enough hurt. The other thing I would say though, that relates to dungeons in other games or a group activity with a group goal. I think that's a kind of cool thing to attach an idea of increasing sociability. So like you're all trying to stay away from this bot, and like succeeding in that or interacting in that could cause, I think a lot of relationships on Zwift form through the chase racing. There's a lot more talking going on. There's a lot more, interaction, like, come on, go get these guys. Let's beat the A's, or let's beat the B's. So I think that's a prime spot to maybe like pick up on getting people to make more friends in that space, right? Or like getting people to, hey, I see you did a beat the bots with so-and-so. You want to, what I mean, or whatever. Like, and that actually is a thing that other MMOs have done because they saw the value in making connections to make sure people stay on their platform. So
united by adversity in a
totally,
common cause.
Exactly.
Yeah. Eric, as Zwift Mastermind, well, I think we are going to do that idea I talked about earlier. I was saying to put you to the test. But anyway, so here's test number one. Who runs this Beat the Bots ride? I mean, I think I've only ever seen it once. Is it HQ or is it a community?
I believe it was James Bailey. I could be wrong, but James is the events guy who has most of the really fun creative ideas, and he's the guy that actually brings them to fruition.
Well, James is on the next episode, because I'm very interested by James, because he's finally that thing that we on the Zwiftcast have been advocating forever, which is just somebody in the Facebook group to kind of represent Zwift in certain areas. But yeah, he'll be on the next episode. Well, that flew by. We're back. They never go back, they say, don't they? Never go back. But we just did, and that was fun. Glad to be back, Shane.
Oh, absolutely. I look forward to whenever the show notes come through. I'm like, where can I put the knife in? Here, and here. It's always a bit of a fun game. Mate, there is so much history with the Zwiftcast. It is legendary in my eyes. I mean, I'm not talking about my presence on it. I'm just happy to be here and happy to be still breathing. But, I mean, there's just, I got a Tron bike joke in. But that wasn't even planned. No, it's great. It's great. And it gives us an opportunity to shoot the breeze, to keep Zwift honest, a voice to the people as well. So anybody listening, if you have, if you want a topic brought up, like, we'll discuss it, within reason. Nothing's really off limits. Zwift love it. There's no shackles on us that what we can and can't talk about or can't say. It's great. It's great. Anything to do with Zwift. I mean, I'm on there almost daily. I'm looking at the forums and things like that. The community is fantastic. So, look, I can't wait to see where Zwiftcast 2.0 takes us.
Nathan, in closing, I think we're rivals now. You've got your own podcast, I believe.
Yeah, we're shifting probably a little bit. So the wrap, we're figuring out what to do with that, and there's also this like new World Series thing coming that maybe has been a little bit. The Zwift World Series has been shared with the elite community, and the elite community that has been invited to participate that has been sharing it out. So I think I have permission to talk about that at this point. But with that coming, and obviously the racing focus that I have, I think we're going to kind of shift a little bit on what that'll be. We'll be direct rivals. You're going to, but because we're going to definitely have a very, very niche down the competition area with podcast stuff. But the wrap is maybe on a wrap.
Okay, well, I'm kind of pleased to hear that. I don't think I'd like to be your rival. I don't think you'd like to be my rival. Dave, welcome to the gang. Looking forward to it, mate?
I cannot wait. I really can't. So much to learn, but the enthusiasm is there. So clear eyes, full heart. Let's go.
Excellent. Eric, would you come on more often? And more importantly, would you do this mad mastermind idea?
It would be my pleasure, Simon. I'm already looking forward to the next episode. Let's do this.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, my friends. It genuinely is good to be back. Really good to be back. That's it for this one, Zwiftcast fans. See you next time. This is the bit where we say thank you very much to Zwift for their support for the Zwiftcast. It's much appreciated. And to remind listeners that we decide what goes into the Zwiftcast, not Zwift. Thanks for listening.